Hi, and welcome to the Serial Killers podcast. It's a podcast all about the pests, diseases and problems that affect arable crops. Each week we're going to do a deep dive into one of those particular problems. Hi Josie.
Hello.
So today's serial killer is the peach potato aphid, also known as the green peach aphid or just green fly in general. Its scientific name is Myzus persicae. And so it's a good one to know the scientific name. Maybe not off by heart, but it's good to know that name because it'll appear time and again. And also there's another species of aphid called the potato aphid, which is completely different. So also you might be confused and think you're looking for a peach-coloured aphid, and it's not peach-coloured. Do you know why it's called the peach potato aphid?
Oh, well, I would have thought it was because it mainly affects peaches and potatoes.
Yeah, so it overwinters on peach and related species. So one of the things about aphids is they often overwinter on a different plant to the one that they are harmful to. And knowing that is actually crucial to its control often. Something like, there's an unusual case, there's one aphid called the willow aphid, and nobody knows where that goes in the winter. And entomologists ask the general public, keep an eye out for this aphid, and the general public go, what are you talking about?
Well, it's important, isn't it?
Yeah. So the peach potato aphid is of importance, not because it's going to form dense colonies that are going to suck your crops dead. It will have an effect on crops and yield, but that's not the main reason. And the main reason is that it's a vector for diseases, and so you need to control it, otherwise it's going to transfer viruses. So it can transfer over 100 different plant viruses, and it can transfer them from 40 different plant families. So it can feed off anything. It's not a sort of aphid that can only live on one plant. So the example I gave of the willow aphid can only live on willows, whereas the peach potato aphid is found on plants, thousands of different types of plants. So that's a big issue.
The main crops it can affect are barley, wheat, oats.
Yeah, but it can also
oilseed
rape. Yeah, so it can transfer to turnip yellow virus, cauliflower mosaic virus, barley yellow virus, I think as well. So
barley yellow dwarf virus, BYDV.
They are, and yields from these are the really dramatic. So we're talking 30% or more.
Severe worst case scenario is that BYDV can cause losses up to 60% in winter wheat and 50% in winter barley. Yeah,
especially early sown ones. So ones that are getting on while aphids are flying around, or late sown spring crops as well. That's going to be an issue. So its life cycle, it's an aphid, so it's green fly. It starts off with eggs. Those young hatch, they haven't got wings. It doesn't go full metamorphosis, so it doesn't form a pupa or anything like that. And then the adults have wings, and they may fly around, or they may just stay on the crop if there's plenty of food. Do you know how they move around crops?
No.
So they just tend to move in the jet stream and move up from the south after the winter.
And that's probably explain why cold weather reduces survival rates.
Yep, so as we say, overwinters on peach, so there's probably more peaches down south than there is up north. And they can give birth to pregnant young. So imagine being born pregnant. And that obviously requires asexual parthenogenesis.
Asexual females overwinter in brassicas, herbaceous crops and weeds.
There we go. So another reason to control weeds. So in sugar beet, the threshold is 1 aphid per 4 plants, as you should look at, and you should spray then. And then when you get to 12 leaves on your sugar beet plant, it's 1 aphid per plant is the time when you spray. Did you come across any chemical controls for the
insecticide treatments, pyrethroid insecticides?
Yep. So the good news is they're very susceptible to pyrethroids, but then as long as they're not resistant.
That's right.
And resistance has been developed in the peach potato aphid. And obviously, if you've got a resistant aphid, you spray them, doesn't kill them, and then they're able to transfer the virus. So there are no actual pesticides that you can spray to control viruses. And so it's really about controlling the vectors and So that's one.
But it's important to note that once the symptoms occur, it's too late for control measures, so you have to be more catching them.
Yep. So you can catch them on yellow sticky traps.
Yeah.
They're particularly good.
During autumn, yellow sticky traps are placed in the soil in fields on the soil surface 5 metres into the crop. So that's a monitoring
Monitor them coming
method.
in from the margins.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And then sort of what bugs will eat the aphids then that we've come across?
I haven't got any bugs, but I would say it would be things like ladybird larvae.
The usual suspects: ladybirds, lacewings,
yeah.
even ground beetles, and then the one that I'm currently using in the hydroponic unit here is parasitic wasps.
Oh, right.
So there is a parasitic wasp that will affect virtually every insect, every species of insect, and so it lays an egg in there. They develop and eat the insect from the inside out and emerge as a fully fledged wasp. We're not talking these yellow stingers. We're talking not microscopic, but about the size of an aphid, really. Wasps, and they're very useful. It's certainly in indoor crops, but you can encourage them in other ways outdoors.
Along the lines of Encarsia formosa.
Yes, that's a very popular one, but there are different species you can buy now. There's also a fungus that will affect aphids, Bavaria. Don't think that's used much in the UK, but it is widely used in other countries.
They tend to feed on crop foliage as well, so that's one of the symptoms, as well as crop roots in moist conditions. So they're not.
So you can go down to the roots.
Yeah, in moist conditions, they'll have been known to go down to the crop roots.
Yeah, and are you aware of any maps or forecasts for aphids?
I haven't got any maps or forecasts, no.
And I don't think anyone really, apart from monitoring them with the yellow sticky traps, I think that's the main thing.
Well, they are sensitive to the weather and temperatures, so map-wise, it's difficult, isn't it?
So while it may not be an issue for cereal crops as much as, say, oilseed rape and sugar beets, they will feed off winter wheat, rye and barley, and then, especially for autumn sown crops, they can then go on to those other crops when they're sown in the spring. So they can just up sticks and move on to preferred source. They'll respond to chemical signals in the air that there's a crop that they prefer in the area. Apparently, it doesn't affect. They won't feed off oats.
Really?
Yeah, there's a number of these cereal killers that we found that they affect every cereal apart from oats, and then oats must have, it's got its own set of problems, but you'll often find that oats are resistant to a certain pest or disease. It's interesting. They must be more distantly related than the other cereal crops. From a Eutrema perspective, here at Eutrema, we sell a number of products that can control aphids. Insecticidal soap is the obvious one. So this is just, it's a non-pesticidal action. It breaks down the exoskeleton of the aphid, takes the waxes out, and they dehydrate. We do obviously a conventional non-sodium insecticidal soap, and we do for organic growers. There's a yucca extract, an extract of the yucca plant, and that contains natural soaps called saponins, and that can be used as an insecticidal soap. It's a very popular product in sports turf as a soil conditioner. And then lime sulfur as well, which can be used in organic crops. It's extremely hazardous, sort of sterilant, but after 3 hours it breaks down into non-hazardous forms, and so that's why it can be used in organic crops. Going forward, and climate change, obviously milder winters means that these aphids are going to overwinter more.
Yeah, autumn and winter.
So they don't.
We tend to get nice autumns, don't we?
We don't need to rely on the Gulf Stream anymore for these aphids to come in. They're just going to be there. There are a number of pests like that with climate change just are here all year round. So like red spider mite, for example, used to be a greenhouse only crop, very rare outdoors. Now it's outdoors all year round, which is a shame. Yeah. Any other top facts about the peach potato aphid, Josie, that I've missed?
They can cause shriveled grain.
Shriveled grain?
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, the symptoms appear typically in spring. Under extreme situations, some plants may die, and it causes the grain to shrivel.
Tell you what we haven't covered. We haven't covered how can you identify a peach potato aphid from any other type of aphid.
No idea.
No idea. It's 1 to 2 millimeters long, so it's a small.
You need
small
your
aphid.
your little
Hand lens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's got a line down the middle of it. It's got it's much smaller than say something like the willow aphid or lupin aphid, which are the big aphids, and it's the most common type of aphid that you're going to find. Maybe not in numbers, but it's going to be on more crops and more plants. So, if you've got aphids on your crop, you need to control them because
you'd
probably
know
going to
if you've got them on your crops because your leaves would be going yellow and stunting. And at first, these aphids might just affect an individual plant throughout the crop, but then these individual plants become distinct circular patches, and then they merge to form extensive areas of infected crop.
And the way to find them is to look on the underside of the leaves as well.
Yeah. Aphids
love the underside of the leaf. Whereas before we talked about thrips, and that's the top side of the leaf. You're going to find aphids, and you're going to find them in rows along where the phloem is, because they're sap suckers. They're sucking the phloem, the sugary sap, and so they're going to be in lines along there. You might also find ants farming them for their honeydew, and then that honeydew in itself can be an issue for certain crops because it then gets fungus growing on it.
That's right.
Fungus goes black because of the spores,
That's
and then you get spoilage and blackness. So that's a nasty side effect of having aphids, and the ants protect them from the predators, so they'll do their fighting for them. So another big issue for aphids in general.
So aphids don't pass the virus on to their offspring.
Do they not?
No. An aphid must acquire the virus by feeding on infected host plants.
That's good news, isn't it?
Well, it is really. The time between acquisition
Yep.
of the virus and the aphid's ability to transfer that virus is 12 to 48 hours.
So almost instantaneous.
Just about.
Yep.
But it's funny that aphids don't pass the virus onto their offspring.
It's not transferred across the placenta or whatever whatever aphids have. There you go. So, but yeah, we're talking over 100 different viruses at least that it can transfer. If you name a virus, it's probably going to be transferred, apart from maybe COVID or AIDS or something like that. But
yeah, they're not the only aphids that transmit the BYDV, barley yellow dwarf virus.
Yeah, there is others.
Bird cherry oat aphid.
Yeah.
And the grain aphid.
Yeah, brilliant. So probably don't need to know down to species level when it comes to aphids.
But
just get rid of them.
It's interesting that it's just not that peach potato aphid.
Brilliant. That's great. Any more top facts about the peach potato aphid?
No, no. I think I'm all done.
Yeah, let's. I guess another key fact, certainly controlling aphids, would be making sure the plant's as healthy as possible. Obviously, plants in shade get aphids more. If you've ever grown plants in in sheltered areas, you'll find they get a lot more aphids for some reason. And then making sure crops have got high silica levels, whether that's from the soil or from a silica fertilizer, obviously makes that cell wall stronger, and young aphids will struggle to get into the plant, as will any pest of your crop. That's a key one. So peach potato aphid. So what have we got up next week? Is it Alternaria next week? Go back to a disease.
Alternaria.
Yeah.
Black point or sooty mould.
Brilliant. All right. Until next week. Thank you very much, Josie.
Thank you.